I think the more mature version of who I've become would look back on early founder Shauna and say, what were you doing? Like, who cares if someone's gonna laugh at you if they don't understand this industry? If there's a problem there and it is clearly begging to be solved, go after that and let that be bigger than any fear of being laughed at or misrepresented.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, welcome back to another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zengage. This is our last new episode of 2025. We'll be back in 2026 with some new stuff. We'll be in your feed with some wrap-up kind of things that I'm working on my editor with right now. But I'm joined today, really excited for this conversation, with Shauna Sweeney from Tender Care. Shauna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. I'm glad to be here.
For people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
I am the lucky CEO and founder of Tender Care. We're on a mission to create more confident families that go through modern aging, and on the other side, find trusted providers and professionals to help them through the care journey.
Yeah, I know our listeners will be really excited to hear about some of the work that you guys are doing. Share where does Tender Care come from? What about your background makes this something that you're good at building? And then what are all the kind of steps along the journey that your users take prior to really needing or reaching out to home care agencies?
It's all great questions. I started my career in tech. I was early Facebook, and so I started by being on the front row of some of the biggest sort of tech milestones that have happened in modern history. We reached 1 billion users. We started to understand the impact of building the right features and how that can really ingrain into society. And I was on the team that was out educating the industry about the shift to mobile, if you can imagine. So there was a period in which none of us really believed that most of our lives were going to be spent on our phones, and that in fact business was going to be spent there too. At this time, my dad, who raised me in Northern California, I was in New York. He's a ship captain, amazing. We're very, very close. He got some bad news when he went in for his annual exam, was starting to exhibit some of the symptoms of early onset Alzheimer's. This was, in fact, what he had. I didn't know anything about this as sort of a person who had chosen a career in a different industry. And this was now the beginning of my journey of what this looks like, of working in tech, having a background, running a very large global team around the shift of what technology is doing to business and commerce. And then on the other side, really stepping into the role of adult daughter caregiver for my dad. That was 15 years ago. We started to hit a lot of hard parts of this. I didn't have a ton of education, not the right information or awareness of what even to ask for. So leaving the doctor's office, for many families, very scary, harrowing ordeal. I made a ton of really bad misfires up front, missed the renewal for my dad's health insurance. You can imagine this was paper mail. I wasn't there. So all kinds of things started to stack up that made me realize that there was a whole lot of good that more transparency, more technology could do for starting to empower those like me who are stepping into this role. Still wasn't planning on doing anything about it. I was going to be a customer of whatever tool was out there. And I realized there wasn't a whole lot out there on the tech side for those like me who was doing this work and actively eager for new tools and solutions. I come from a family of inventors. My great grandpa, he had over 120 patents. And so it's always been in the back of my mind, what is going to be my contribution? What problem can I help solve? After several years of doing this without very much technology alongside my dad, I kind of got sick of waiting for it and decided this was an opportunity to go out and build a real platform that recognized what families were going through, the modern experience of aging, and then connected them to the professionals that, especially in my own life, have made all the difference for me as we've expanded our care team. And so we wanted to offer something new for those who came after us to go ahead and experience aging in a much more proactive, much more confident way.
Yeah. And what's like for the entry point for most of your users? What's the first way they get involved with Tender Care? And like, how do they find you guys and what do they do? And what difference does that make like in their lives?
Yeah, we are a social first company. So we get hundreds of thousands of people organically coming to our website, to our apps. We have a number of free tools that are available. They've heard about us. Word of mouth is really important for us, building into our products, something that you'd be willing to refer or recommend to a friend, to a family member, if you're in a position in, healthcare or social worker, to the families that you serve. And so they come to us because we're out there on every platform. You'll see us. We're very active on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And we pay for no advertising, actually. We're just out there really trying to get the word out about how to get smarter about care. So that's often where we hear a lot of our families will come in through. But we also let our products speak for themselves. So they often come in through something called the Tender ID. We hand these out. We work with multiple departments of aging through EMTs, first responders, fire departments, primary care physicians. These are really a major replacement for the Vial of Life, which many of listeners will be familiar with right now. There's so much wrong with the Vial of Life. It was great in its time, but it gets thrown away. It gets written over. It's hard to read. You don't know the last time it was updated. It's not actually serving the purpose it was meant to, which is giving first responders the most important information they need in the 10 minutes of life-saving window they have to administer care to someone in an event, an emergency, when they're nonverbal. This also updates all family members the minute it's scanned. So instead of waiting till you get to the discharge nurse or, the social worker at the emergency room, anyone that you put on this account can immediately lock in and know that it's time to go in and make sure grandma's okay, for instance. So a lot of our families hear about us through there. Getting prepared for an emergency is also a really great conversation starter to getting prepared for other emergencies. What does a legal emergency look like? What does a household emergency look like? So it's one thing to make sure that this is in a wallet or a purse or on the fridge, but it's another to also start to think about what are the other easy ways to start putting a plan in place. This is often the conversations we're first having when families are coming onto our platform.
Well, we're going to get more into the kind of work that you guys are doing and how that intersects with the home care world. I'm going to take a hard left turn here because my last episode I recorded that published this week, today's December 11th, was with Michelle Cohn of Homewell. And she ran a whole bunch of marathons as a 10-year-old and then stopped at the age of 12. I know, I see your face. It's crazy. It seems like a bad set of choices, but it was a different time in the 80s. We would just latchkey kids would go run marathons, I guess. Sorry, Michelle. But I was about to run my first half marathon. And so I know everybody who listens to the show is like, God, when's David going to talk about his half marathon? That's all I've ever wanted to hear about. And Shauna, you mentioned that you're a runner. So now we're all here. We're all captive audiences. I've started this train. It's left the station. I can't stop. So I ran my first half marathon. My goal was 2 hours because if you run slower than 2 hours, that's just like, the next it's like 3 hours. And you're like, well, sub 3 seems. Anyways, so I ran, and then Strava, the app, was like, we estimate you're going to run a 156. I was like, I'd love to beat 156. That sounds fun. And so there was a 155 pacer, and I was like, that's close enough. So I'll do that instead of just staring at my Garmin the entire time. And then we had a big hill, so we banked a little bit of time on the front end, finished at 153.38.
Yeah.
So I know, it's pretty exciting. During the course of the run, I started out as 34 degrees, so it was a little chilly. So I started out with my short shorts, and I had a tank that I was going to lose my under layer. I had a nice base layer that was wicking. And about 3.5 miles in, I was like, all right, I'm warm enough now. I would love to lose this base layer that's nice and warm in favor of just the tank. And so as I'm managing all the things, I've got a hat, I got gloves, I got earbuds in my ears. I lose an earbud, and I was like, no big deal. I pick it up. I keep on running. I'm, half naked out there in the wilderness, and I get everything resituated, and I go to put my earbud back in. Rubber tip's gone. So I ran the rest of the race with one earbud. It's all fine. I get to the end, and I realize as I'm like taking pictures, I picked up my daughter, Joni, and ran about the last 150 yards with her. That was fun. We got some good pictures out of the deal. And then I realized as I'm taking pictures that my tank, I put the bib on the wrong side. So I was wearing it backwards for the entire day. So backwards bib, lost an earbud, got way behind the pacer, had to run for like 2 miles to catch up with the 155 pacer. His name was Les. But it all worked out. And then we went and rented e-mountain bikes and rode 18 miles. And so I think I was extra sore because I did that, not just because of the...
Well, that wasn't enough, huh? The half marathon.
I had a buddy in town. Northwest Arkansas is known for its mountain biking. I was like, let's go ride. And so we did. But an e-mountain bike is fun, but it's not really exercise.
Right, push the button.
Yeah. I think my average heart rate for the mountain bike ride was about 100 beats per minute. So, Shauna, I'm sorry we've lost all of our listeners now because that was a really long, boring story. But
no, it wasn't. Good for you. What's your favorite pre-race meal? More importantly,
I'm very much boring, just like a Cliff Bar guy.
But for dinner the night before?
Oh, for dinner the night before. I live in Tawnytown, Arkansas. It's 4,000 people, but it's connected to the rest of Northwest Arkansas, which is, 750,000 people. And it's settled by a French guy named Henri de Tonty, which I only know because on my GPS, it's like you're on Henri de Tonty Boulevard. It's like, okay, great. But it's super Italian. Like our fire hydrants are painted the Italian flag. And so I've got this place called the Venetian Inn. And the Venetian Inn has been in operation since 1947, and they have unbelievable Italian food. They also have the Arkansas version of it, which is one of their famous dishes is spaghetti and fried chicken.
Whoa.
But they have unbelievable meatballs. They've got lasagna. So I'm a spaghetti and meatballs guy before a run.
Oh, so good. Carb up. That's my favorite part, is just the complete guilt-free go to town before the race. Good for you. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. What's your favorite pre-race meal?
Pasta too.
Cool.
I love pasta, garlic bread, the whole thing. I love it. I also love a beer at the finish line.
Yes. I tell people I run so I can eat ice cream and drink beer.
100%. It doesn't taste better than after suffering for many hours.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. Well, let's dive in. Hard left turn again. Thanks for being here. Friend of the show, Kevin Smith, introduced us. And I'm super excited about what you guys are building. The rate of user acquisition you guys are doing is crazy. But we're not here to talk about all that. Instead, I bring really successful people on the show to ask them about the big mistake that they made and how that mistake changed the way that they think about life or about business. So, Shauna, what's your big mistake?
Well, coming from the tech sector, right, and coming into building tools for this industry, you come in with a lot of cultural expectations around what a founder does. What does a tech company of the future look like, right? That's just part of being human. We're always matching for what this looks like. We were getting signal on Tender IDs from early days. So I mean 3 years ago, but it didn't feel like a tech company to go out and start printing actual goods. And so even though the signal was there, I ignored it. It kept coming. It was always on the product roadmap, but always pushed like 4 or 5 stops down. And my big mistake was letting the better of what one is supposed to look like when solving a problem get in the way of actually solving the problem. As soon as we actually built these, they started to go. It's the classic story of the fish jumping into the boat up and to the right. Clearly, we had created value. And I think the more mature version of who I've become would look back on early founder Shauna and say, what were you doing? Like, who cares if someone's going to laugh at you if they don't understand this industry? If there's a problem there and it is clearly begging to be solved, go after that and let that be bigger than any fear of being laughed at or misrepresented in some of these rooms that ultimately don't matter and aren't why we got into building business in the first place.
I think there's 2 things there, which is you have this idea of what the product, what the company, what the tech-enabled solution is, and you're not listening to the market in the way you need to. What was the thing that you were building when you should have been doing this, that you were like, this is going to be the thing that solves the world's problems?
There's so many false sirens that happen on the founder journey. You get into this and it's the honeymoon phase. You've now taken the scary leap. You've left your, in my case, very solid career, and you're hell-bent on going out and solving something. And you hear the signal, you start talking to people. What do they want? There's so much about the current experience that's broken. And so the thing that you'll hear most often from a family is, man, I am so overwhelmed. I don't even know what's coming at me. I just want everything in one place. Like, can you just give me everything in one place? So many of those who have come before me, myself included. We're like, cool, we've got you. We're going to go build the thing that puts everything related to taking care of mom or dad in one place for you. Usually starting with medical records. It's like, cool, we're going to go out, get your primary care physician to play ball. We're going to get your specialists. We're going to find a way to pull all this together in a seamless way. Okay. Did that. Let me just report back from the scar tissue of following that trail, which is we did all of this. We partnered with a clearinghouse. We integrated. We were able to get Epic. We were able to get every single different health system for the most part, like 90%, to play ball with us. So if a user is motivated enough, they could start to pull all these records together. Okay, here's the human part of this problem that I didn't do the calculations on and many others haven't either, which makes me feel slightly better. Each of these different systems have their own tech IT teams that are part of them who are prioritized in different ways towards either maintaining some of these systems or not. So what we quickly found out was that as we put all of the pipes in place to put everything in one place, what we were finding was all of these broken endpoints on all of these systems because they've been forgotten about, Joe and IT's moved on. And so we ended up becoming the customer service for all of these different other companies. And we were falling down on our promise to our families, which is like, hey, we're actually going to get everything in one place. Well, it turns out, no, we're not. We're going to end up on the back end yelling at a bunch of different poor IT teams. And so realized pretty quickly, even though that's what we all want, the system wasn't ready for it. And it was going to be out of our control to make the system ready. It's still on my roadmap. It's going to happen. But we had to switch around our priorities of what to build first that we could control. And when we make a promise to a family, we could deliver on it without relying on a lot of other teams we don't work with to make sure that we could actually do it.
And now the dependencies, actually, hang on just a second. I'll come back to that. You got it, buddy. Here I come. Too many animals. We had animals and then we had a baby and it was like, my God, a zoo in here. Anyways, so now the dependencies are like, you've got the Tender ID on the fridge and a first responder comes in and they scan that. It gives them the information they need. It triggers the workflow with the family. And like, that's it. You're not dependent on software, talking to another software, and one of those softwares is broken. Instead, you are just dependent on, does the first responder know that's a place they can get the information they need? And then does that action trigger something? And of course, you guys control what that action triggers.
Exactly. So sometimes what you realize is you just got to build it yourself. If you want to be able to keep things to a certain quality, it's got to be end to end within your control. There's all kinds of ways for this to be even further built out that do involve integrations, but we wanted to start with something that we could make a promise around and then we could actually deliver on. And one of the coolest things about the Tender ID is that the minute it's scanned, it alerts anyone in a family that something has happened. And so, we don't need to wait for anyone then for care to start to happen. We also don't need to wait for a family who's probably in a pretty stressful situation at that point to let us know that they need help. So that was also really important, which is that when you're in the middle of something, the last thing you're often thinking about is like, what are 3 steps ahead? You're just trying to get through, what emergency room was grandma actually taken to? I don't even know. I'm trying to figure this out. They're not already putting a plan in place for who's going to be the team that locks in when it's time for discharge. We can then immediately understand it's time to step in, ask, hey, do you need any help? Is there anything we can do to make your experience easier for you right now? And it just takes one extra additional load off of a family that we can then be in this, like, in service of making their lives a little bit easier through what is probably a pretty tough time.
Okay. I love that because you've ultimately, they're all notified by the fact that the QR code was scanned, but you guys are also notified, which triggers the ability for you to do some outreach and figure out what other services that you all can provide that's going to take a load off that family.
Yeah, our goal is to stabilize them, right? It's on average 6 months right now from the bad thing happening, the emergency revisit, the diagnosis, to actually feeling like a family's got some real infrastructure ground around them, to have a care plan, a set of people that they can rely on, professionals to help them. We're under a constant mission to carve out that time. We want to get it down to less than 24 hours where they've got everything they need and they're ready and out the gate. We don't want any of that time, what we call sort of the dread zone. That's what families call this. We want to equip them with the help right away, right out of the gate.
That's really good. The other thing I want to return to is this kind of like founder imposter syndrome you experienced when you were like, okay, it actually looks like what the market needs is something dramatically simpler than the crazy like spaghetti noodle of pipes that we were creating.
Right.
And so what was that journey like? And I guess the first time that you shared with other tech people, here's what we're building and here's the results that we're seeing from that. Did they look down on it in the same way that you expected? And like how did you respond to that?
First, I bring Tender IDs with me to any of these conversations. So usually I let my product speak for itself. And they immediately like, hey, I got to go set up my mom. Or actually, can I use this with my kid? I could put this in their backpack. And so the value and the real world application immediately takes over. So that's always in my favor, which is like, hey, I'm just going to put this in your hands. So that's going to stop you right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't stop everyone. I also just acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is like, yeah, go ahead, laugh. I'm out here talking about how, we are going to save lives and go out and blanket the country with these QR codes that are ultimately incredibly smart, deceptively simple. And that usually just acknowledges what they're probably already thinking. And sometimes they start laughing on the other side. So, it's just a reality. And this is part of being a founder, which is every day you have to choose to be in service of the solution more than your ego. And you have to want to solve the problem more than you want to look cool.
Yeah. We've been involved in some fundraising stuff and there's all these like different like kind of founder lifestyle things. And there's a music artist that has like a VC fund where they invest in startups and whatnot. And like part of their value prop to companies is you can come to our parties. And it's, if you're the kind of founder that's your jam, like it's probably not the deal for us.
Yeah. And also God bless them for having time for partying.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. You mean you don't? Weird.
Yeah. That's not part of the game right now, but that's okay.
Okay. I want to transition to something that the industry is underrating. You think it's actually really valuable, but it's typically pretty overlooked. So what's that?
Yeah. Well, I think this is going to be pretty simple again, but video and putting yourself out there. Almost entirely, I feel like the industry has these stood up websites that have a lot of information on them, some really good branding on them, a lot of the like sort of services that are offered. But actually the way that people get comfortable with other people they don't know and aren't in the same location is by usually video. We do this on social platforms. We're getting to know these people, right? And forming relationships with people we've never met on these social platforms. And when I go out in the industry and I meet, home care owners, providers, professionals, these are the most incredible humans. They're service-oriented angels, and they're so warm. They're usually a soccer coach and a community leader and a nonprofit board member. And these are the types of people you want to have into your home. And you almost see the entire absence of these people online.
Yeah.
It's wild to me. It's only happening in rooms, in networking rooms, and this weird sort of allergy to using video to be able to bring that humanity out and into family screens where they're doing a lot of their engagement decision making. I think that's just a huge under leveraged opportunity.
Yeah. Could not agree more. I think friend of the show, Nick Bonatabas, is the video guy in home care. And when I talk to him, he's like, look, I'll even have clients who make these videos and then they don't post them. And I just think there's so much fear around, I hate how I sound on video. I hate how I look on video. And a big part of the reason that I feel like my podcast has been successful, my God, what an annoying thing to say, but is nobody else will do it. It takes a little bit too long and a little bit too much thought and intentionality, and you have to do it every week or people will notice. And man, if I was a home care owner, and I'm not, because I think that's really hard. It seems like a really hard job. But if I was, I would start the local podcast for like aging parents and adult kids and all of that. And I would just have all kinds of resource partners on. Man, the best value you could bring to a referral source is to have them on your podcast. Who else is going to do that? And so if that's short form video, if that's writing something and putting it on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Like there's a huge opportunity there. And it makes me crazy that these folks with amazing stories aren't sharing those stories more publicly.
And it doesn't need to be this super produced thing. Like one of our brand principles is authenticity. If you think about yourself as a consumer and you think about the content that you're looking through that really resonates with you, it's often not super slick, produced, commercial quality. It's a real person talking to you from their car on the way into their front door, just being real about something. And so, all of us have these now. You could literally just talk into your camera, and you'd be amazed how much legitimate trust building you will be doing. We do a whole bunch of webinars for our trusted network members. These are our qualified, vetted professionals who are on our platform that we match with our families. And we're always trying to help them improve the way that they get out there and engage with families, because they're just total unsung heroes. And one of the things we're doing next Tuesday for our members is masterclass on social media. How do you actually use these channels to your business's advantage? How are you thinking about what stories you're telling, what call to action you're asking your families to take with you, or even other peers, for referral networks? These are under leveraged and they're right there. They're free. You have a phone, you've got all the tech you need, and the wonderful part of this is the hard work has already been done, which is that the character of those who are out there who have already made a decision to do this work, to your point, it's hard work, right? So essential. Families are going to fall in love with you. You just have to go out there and let them.
Yes. That's really well said. Families are going to fall in love with you. You just have to go out there and let them. That's good. Okay, let's transition. We're going to talk about we talked about the big mistake that you made. What's a little mistake that you see home care owners make all the time? And if they quit, it'd make their lives or their businesses like 10 times better.
I have the privilege of getting to audit and vet hundreds of different professionals, different business owners, their businesses. So we do at Tender Care a full scrape of what does this business look like? If family had unlimited time, they were able to go deep investigative plumbing into the internet of whatever has been said on Reddit, not just Google reviews, but literally everywhere. How do they show up on their website? What messages are they putting out there? Does this sort of stay standard across their entire footprint, their digital footprint? And so as part of that, we get in tremendous visibility into how business owners are helping tell their story. And what I often find is that there's so much time that's being spent on the operations, on the staffing, on the actual running of the business. And I get it. This is tough work. And most of this is in real life and out there in the world, in the field. They're missing things that are actually really small that would do tremendous good for their business overall and their growth overall. Like a review that has gone unresponded to by one family that, look, there's always going to be mismatches. This happens, right? And there is a question that family had or was angry about an experience. And now it's just sitting out there on the web for any other prospective family to go out and see. We're not going to be able to make all the people happy all the time, but what you can do is spend a little bit of time just showing up. What is your online reputation? What does that look like? How can you respond to that to correct it? If there's some safety or mitigation practice or policy that you have, make sure that that's out there so you can be sure that the story that you're putting out there and framing for the world, for your future customers, is one that you have a controlling stake in the narrative around.
Yeah. So that's unresponded to not great review is one of the biggest signals.
So small. Yeah, so small, but they're out there and they're just sitting there. And some of them have been sitting out there for years.
I'm curious, because you're somebody who's come from outside of the home care world. You're interacting with a lot of home care providers. You're doing something that's parallel to, but obviously interacts with the home care world quite a bit. As you look at kind of the state of home care and how that service is delivered today, what's kind of your projection on the future of this industry? Where do you see home care as an industry going next?
Yeah. Well, the demographic of the buyer is changing, right? An adult child at this point is incredibly tech savvy. They're often harried. We've got no time. I'm one of them, sandwiched. So we are very tight on our ability to make decisions, communicate time. I'm starting to see some really savvy home care owners offer texting as a service, really starting to equip their people, their teams with the ability to meet this new type of sort of profile, if you will. I think there's going to be even more of that. And so I think anyone who's leaning in to giving multiple options to how to communicate, how to connect, how to build trust with a family is going to be huge. So I'm really encouraged by what I see. Second piece, there is, I think, a pretty stiff competition that seems to be heating up with home care overall. There's more demand than ever, but there's also more competition than ever, it feels like. And it's going to be more and more important to compete on quality and on trust in front of families. So what are those differentiators, right? What is it that makes you stand out? What policies, what programs, what education are you doing that give more of a look and feel to a family that makes them feel really good about selecting your service? I think it's going to be increasingly important as home care starts to blend together. It gets very stiff in competition, almost become commoditized in some ways, to start to put your own print, your own branding, your own flair to what this looks like. And so I think we're going to start seeing very different shapes and forms of what that service can translate to.
I think you're 100% right about that. I think some of the biggest pressure that's going to impact this market is there are some caregiver marketplaces that exist out there that is the business model is Uber for home care. And you see it with like care.com, but there's some others that are more almost like nurse registry kind of models where you pay the platform. They're not just a matchmaker. You pay the platform and the platform pays the caregiver. And if all we are as a home care agency is a staffing company, it's going to be really hard to compete, not just with other home care providers, but with these, well-funded tech behemoths who are a staffing agency. And so if you are finding other ways to add value, to provide useful resources, to take some of this malaise off of the decision makers in the relationship, like it doesn't matter that you cost 20% more. You make their life so many multiples better that they'll pay it.
Yeah. And really putting a face, I think, to who that family can feel that they can build a relationship with long term.
Yeah.
How is this being staffed in a way that can cultivate that type of a relationship? It's going to be increasingly important, right? Because families already feel like they're on the back foot with this. They are not sure. They're often funneled through a hotline that might not actually be in, the location of where they want to get their help. So they want to feel a sense of locality there. They want to feel like if they pick up a phone, they know where the buck stops, who's going to be responsible, who's going to really be someone who's looking out for their family. So creating that personalization, allowing for those relationships, really important, because this is already just a very impersonal and scary space and psychology of like where your family is coming to you in. So the more that you can mitigate that, create hyper local sort of touch points, I think those are going to be the players that win. And we're already seeing it happen. The natural competitive edge we see on quality. Oftentimes you get these little mom and pop shops and they do go above and beyond. It matters to them. The business really matters to them. And so, you start to develop what feels like less of a customer business relationship and more of like extended family. So my advice, especially to the bigger players, would be to learn from that and figure out how do you incorporate that into your operations so you can stay big, but also stay small at the same time.
All right, we talked about a lot of stuff that went wrong, but I like to end every episode on a high note. So what's something that's happened lately in the business that you're really proud of?
Oh, one thing that I think unites all of us is that we chose this industry and we feel proud every day to be here. We could all be in 15 different industries, but we're here. And we're here because we're aligned on principles and values of what matters. And we believe in caring for people, our people and our community when they get sick. And so every day I feel really good about that. Now there's of course always the crazy parts of just day to day being in this industry that can also be tough. But one thing that I'm really, really proud of, and just like you broke your half marathon news, I'm going to share some news that's going to be coming out here shortly that we are just so excited by. At the Tender Care team, we have just an incredible array of very talented individuals who are part of this team with us, but we have a new person who is going to be joining us as our Chief Caregiver Advocate. She's coming in an advisor capacity, but she's very well known. She was on The View. She's most recently on CBS. Her name is Lisa Ling. She's been doing a deep dive investigative reporting sort of search across America for the past 2 years on the cost of caregiving for real families. She is going to be joining us to go out and really tell the stories of both our trusted network, the incredible businesses that are on our platform that are already doing this work, and the families who are engaging in what is just tremendously honorable and difficult work today to care for one another. So you can expect a lot more of Lisa and a lot more storytelling from us heading into 2026.
Wow, that is super exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, before we get out of here, what do you want to plug?
If you are interested in equipping the families that you serve with being emergency ready, hit us up. TryTenderCare.com. We love to give these to our partners, to ambassadors. We give these out to hospital systems. We would love to give you some of these just for you to try yourself, see what the impact of these can be. If you're interested in applying for our trusted network, you can also do that at TryTenderCare.com. We have a whole vetting process that we go through. It usually takes around 20 hours of our team's time to really go through all licensing, credentialing, do a full scrape, but it's a process worth doing. It's another trust badge and seal for families. And it's a way for us to qualify, making sure that we feel very confident in matching you to the families that are on our platform.
Very good. Well, Shauna, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.